and Frank for inviting me. And Scott said, I last talked here in the old building on Main Street there, and that was in 2017, so maybe that's 8 years, but it was on gold, and so this is going to be a different topic. If you want to leave now, then I'm not going to tell you where the gold is like I did back then. So. Thank you for having me here, and Scott said I taught at Columbia College for 26 years and retired 3 years ago on April 30th, so that day just came and went. And what I want to present today is a little risky because I've never done this before, some of the parts that you're going to see. And what I put together is a tour, a geo tour, from Oakdale to Yosemite of the geology along Highway 120. So I'm going to show you some apps that you can use after this talk with your friends, family, yourself, and your smartphone. And basically, you can go to different locations. There's some pictures and text and information that pop up, and that'll be on there in perpetuity, presumably. So let's see how it works. I have a space mouse. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of what a space mouse is. Ginger does. Thank you, Ginger, for your support on these things. Ginger, I can't blow that. So this is a mouse that has what's called 6 degrees of freedom, and it's used for 3D modeling. I taught drone mapping and started a program at the college with that. So pilots will probably love this kind of technology. I'm going to use Google Earth tonight and try to do some fly-throughs. If you don't know what 6 degrees of freedom is, it means that when you move this mouse button with your hand, you kind of clutch it like this. You can move it forward and backwards horizontally, that's 1 degree, sideways 2, up and down 3. And pilots out there, pitch, roll, and yaw are 3 other directions. So it makes it really much easier and more fun. I spent hours on this thing. Flying around applications like Google Earth. So hopefully everything will work, but we'll see. My objective, the title of the talk is Geotour of Highway 120 from Oakdale to Yosemite. The answer, I'm giving you the answer right now. I'm a teacher, not supposed to give the answer first, right? It's subduction and accretion. So I'm telling you 2 concepts that I hope you'll leave with a better understanding of. If you've never heard of them, I hope you understand more about them. If you've heard of them, maybe even deeper. I'm going to move around a little bit. Part of the talk, I'm going to be behind your constraint using 2 mice at once. And then this part, I get to move around a little bit, right? So hopefully by the end of the talk, you'll understand these basic concepts. I thought to myself, if I was in the audience and I didn't know much about geology, that's an unchecked assumption. What would I need to know to be able to do this geo tour in the future, or drive this myself or with my friends and family? So you need to know some basic concepts. Then something called deep time to get a sense. You're all in a history club, or you're here for a historical society talk, right? So there's some interest in history, presumably. We're going to talk about big history. History of the planet, and try to put that into context with what the Historical Society does. Also, with this, once we get through this background information, then I'm going to switch over and give you this tour on the corridor, the Highway 120 corridor, using Google Earth and another app called CalTopo or SARTopo. Anyone use that, or anyone familiar with that? Okay, so that'll be new technology. So you can use that on your smartphone. I tried to load it up in here, but I'm on AT&T. The Wi-Fi is slow, so there's a QR code if you want to try to use that with your phone and pull up the web page. That's available. So, and then finally, the last little piece will just be the end. The summary. Okay, so let's see. Slide number 1. Basic concepts, geologic concepts, fundamental to the science of geology, plate tectonics. So likely a review for most people, but that repetition works in learning. One thing. So There are three types. Let me start with the Earth is basically an 8,000 mile wide ball or rock it's mostly solid. There's a solid inner core and a liquid outer core deep inside the Earth that's about the size of our moon. So outside of that, it's kind of like a hard-boiled egg. There's a yolk, then there's the egg white, albumin it's called, and then there's the crust or the shell of the egg. So in the Earth, we have the inner and outer core down here, this mantle, which is the egg white, and then this very thin little layer of crust right here, that little darker shaded area. And then this is called continental crust, because the crust boils down to two types, continental and ocean crust. Ocean crust is thinner, but it's more dense. It's got more iron in it. Guess why the oceans are where they are? They're all above oceanic crust that has more dense rock, so it sinks down into the mantle, and then the continents blob up. That's why they are higher above sea level. They also move around because of heat flow inside the Earth called convection, the transfer of heat by movement of the rock. Even though many people have a misconception that, oh, it's all liquid down here, lava comes out, makes volcanoes. It isn't really. It's mostly like gelatin, and the continents are like ice cubes on a bowl of Jello. So imagine putting an ice cube on a bowl of Jello. They're both hard, relative. They're not liquid, I mean, and yet the ice cube will float up on top of the Jello. The crust is just the top little surface of the ice cube. And then they can move these plates, the crust is broken up into plates, we call them. A plate, dinner plate being much wider than it is thick. And the plates are typically 4,000 miles wide. We look relatively on the edge of the North American plate. But this plate that we're standing on is connected to the western half of Iceland. So it's got oceanic crust, and it's got continental crust, all the way to New York, and then all of that crust out to Iceland is part of the North American plate. So incredibly thin, but wide, and mobile. They move around because of how heat flows within the Earth. Convection, I said earlier, is the transfer of heat by movement of material. That mantle rock, unlike egg white doesn't really move. You can kind of squeeze it and stuff when you pull the shell off, but it doesn't flow. The Earth's crust actually moves because the mantle slowly flows. How fast, you might ask? About as fast as your fingernail goes. That's how fast the crust moves. Sometimes it jumps 20, 30 feet during large earthquakes, then it just sits there. But over an average, about as fast as your hair grows or your fingernails, something like that. And three directions. Okay, so this diagram shows two plates butted up next to each other, moving apart. This one shows two moving past each other, if you were to take your hands, just moving horizontally, as opposed to moving apart. Then the last, moving into each other. And that's this third diagram over here. So this is called convergent motion, divergent, and then transform motion. And so in California, guess what? We have all three. We are so lucky. They make earthquakes, they make volcanoes. Aren't we lucky? And that's part of the beauty of California and Groveland. If it wasn't for faulting, I'll give you a little secret away. It's not a secret. It was published in 2011. There's a new plate boundary forming behind Sonora Pass right now. If you take your hand, let me see, Baja will be on that side. Take your pinky, this is Baja. The Sea of Cortez is basically between Mexico and Baja. And the crust is opening up and unzipping. That's connecting to the Sonora Peak and Sonora Pass. Right now. How many people knew that one? You got your money's worth. Okay, so I want to zoom in right here and then move on. But in California, we have divergence. The Salton Sea is below sea level. Let's see, one of the largest cities on Earth is in California, but that's below sea level, 40 feet below sea level. Anyone been to El Centro? Halfway between San Diego and Yuma? that city is completely below sea level. Why? Because the crust is unzipping, splitting apart through there, and that's coming up behind the Sierra, connecting with Sonora Pass. We also, in Northern California, we have an ocean plate diving underneath a continental plate. And it's not the Pacific plate, it's called the Gorda plate. Both my kids live in Eureka. On December 5th last year, they felt a magnitude 7 earthquake. My daughter called, "Dad, what do I do? What do I do?" Cover and hold, ding dong. Didn't I teach you? So they were okay, it was offshore a ways, but that's a very seismically active area. So we have convergence going on in Northern California, divergence in Southern California, and then we have this transport motion going along. Most people have some connections to the Bay Area, San Andreas Fault. Plates are moving past each other, they're not splitting apart, allowing volcanoes, they're not crashing in, allowing melting in volcanoes. So no volcanoes presently, unless you go to Hollywood and look at movies, they'll probably put one in. Okay, so this comes from a book by Keith Meldal, and everyone's looking at the beer cans. What the heck? So this is the worst diagram in the talk because you can't read much, but I put it in here anyway because it shows this process. Time is going in this direction. So first, second, third, fourth. What's going on here? First, second, third, fourth. You have a beer can that's like a volcano island that he's simulated as a beer can, Budweiser. And that's Budweiser right there. This is Coors right here. And this is Bud Light right here. So what's going on? Actually, Bud Light comes in behind this one. So if you take the beer cans and you smash them into the wall over here, can 1 gets squished, can 2 gets squished, can 3 comes in, and then they end up making these, they're a little bit longer than they are wide, whereas before they were wider than they are long. These are like volcanic islands. This is a volcanic island with ash coming out. It's going towards a subduction zone. This ocean right here can close up as another volcanic island comes in, and another one, and then they extend the crust outwards in this direction. When you drive from Oakdale to Yosemite, you're going to be driving across giant beer cans worth of these pieces of crust, not even knowing it. I didn't know it the first time I came up. What are those little fin-like rocks sticking out? You know, the tombstone, gravestones? I'll show you a picture in a little bit, but it's like, you see that how the little fin sticks up right here, right? So this is a sort of an oblique view, but some of these rocks get folded, the originally horizontal layers, and erosion differentially separates the weaker parts from the stronger, and you get these little fin-like structures, and we call them tombstone or gravestone rocks. And you see them, the first time I drove to Yosemite, Mom, what's all that? I don't know. Go be a geologist. Okay, and then this last diagram over here shows you that these cans, or if they're islands, they come on and squeeze and stretch themselves out into these, what we call belts. So a belt is longer than it is wide, and these are belts of similar type rocks. If you take a volcanic island like the Big Island of Hawaii, and you put it towards, say, Japan or Asia, and then you try to push it back down, it's not dense enough to go back down, so then it gets squished, earthquake by earthquake by earthquake, and stretched out. It'll become, someday, if it keeps doing what it's doing, something like this, a long, skinny belt of, we call that accreted rock, and there's another term called terrain, not choo-choo train, but T-E-R-R-A-N-E. I'll be saying a little bit more about that. So let's go, oops, sorry, one button.
Does this mean that Don Pedro's full of beer?
It could be. This diagram right here is showing something called accretion, right here. Subduction is the process where one tectonic plate moves under, like submarine, and it actually plows under, goes back in, and gets recycled. And in the process, earthquake by earthquake, sediments coming off of the mountains into the estuaries and offshore pile up in layers, and then they can get accreted or welded or stuck onto the edge of a continent. Man, imagine the pressures and the temperatures as that stuff gets slammed into by a tectonic plate, right? And then some of that tectonic plate can partially melt. Some of the water from the ocean is in the sandstone in the spaces in between the grains, and that can go down and turn into water vapor and melt the rock at temperatures it normally wouldn't melt at. You might have to get it hotter normally, but with water in there, you can melt it at lower temperatures, turn it into magma, and make a whole chain of volcanoes that we call a volcanic arc. Northern California, we've got Lassen Peak, Shasta, Medicine Lake volcano, all the way up through Oregon, Mount St. Helens in Washington, Mount Rainier, all the way to Whistler in southern Canada. That's a volcanic arc on land. Volcanic arcs can also be like the Aleutian Islands or the Japanese archipelago or Indonesia. So they don't have to be on land. These island arcs can come march in and stick onto the edge of continents. But we can also get volcanic arcs like the Cascades on continents because of subduction. Raise your hand or put your thumb up if you think you know more about what subduction is right now. I'm going to keep talking then. How about accretion, welding, sticking, two boats or boat docking next on a wharf? That's to be an island coming in and sticking. So we're starting to get it, all right? Repetition works, so we're going to keep repeating some. Now, this is a side view of what's called the Western Metamorphic Belt. And so in the Sierra Nevada, the mountain range runs from northwest to southeast roughly 400 miles, and it's about 80 miles wide. The western one-third from Oakdale up to right about here, actually, is metamorphic rock. And that's called the metamorphic, some people call that the Western Metamorphic Belt. What's the eastern two-thirds made of? Starts with G, ends with
Granite.
You can't take it for granted. Granitic rock. There's more than 33 dozen types of granite in Yosemite alone. 3 dozen types of granite. It's crazy. Okay, so what's going on here? This is a little place in Northern California in the Sierra called a little hamlet called Shoe Fly. Gave these rocks their name. This is called the Shoe Fly Complex. This is an ocean plate diving under the North American plate. What's that process called? Starts with an S, ends with an N. Okay, right on. This is an advanced group. So, as you keep subducting and sticking pieces of crust onto North America, the plate grows westward in this direction. And with uplift, all of these different groupings of rock, the Shoe Fly Complex, the Calaveras Complex, named after Calaveras County, where it crops out, and guess what this building is on, and probably most of your homes, you're on Calaveras Complex rocks. So we're going to learn a little bit more about this. And then the Don Pedro terrain, where the beer is, right? That's another one of these chunks that came in, beer camp. And then the foothills terrain. So terrain, complex. So terrain is a long belt of rock, like an island that came in, maybe more roundish, and got stretched and squeezed out, couldn't go down in the subduction zone, and basically stuck onto the edge of North America. And then the ocean was out further where the subduction zone broke and started a new place. That's the pattern of geology in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Here's a geologic map of the Central Sierra, and you may not be able to read this, but in general, the pink would be granite, yeah. And it's, I call it the granitic cake. Why? Because there's frosting on the granite. This stuff is younger than the pink, and it's volcanic rock. From volcanoes to the east, 10 million years ago, were erupting and ash was falling and blanketing the foothills here. And these volcanoes were eroding like Mount St. Helens did when it erupted in 1980. They had 3 complete glaciers on its peak. All that water melted away. And the muddy slurries that raced down the rivers, like the Tule River on the north side, filled up the Columbia River for 3 weeks. Shipping traffic couldn't come back and forth. All those mud flows came down off of St. Helens. We have mud flows here all over the place. That's this I call it volcanic frosting covering the granitic cake. Someone did a bad job of frosting, or the kids got their fingers in it. And there's the other stuff, this little light colored, sort of supposed to be kind of yellowish. I'll get a little feedback here. I'll try not to be so exciting. So that's the icing on the frosting on the granitic cake. So we have glacial sediments that are still here, icing on volcanic frosting on granitic cake. Anyone ever eaten cake? Can you remember this? Okay, so you just learned half the geology of the Sierra. And I'll talk more about how the granitic rock got there, but the other picture is these layers or belts of rock, these terrains. These are all terrains, and guess what? There's a pattern. Let's see, this is old priest grade right here. So Groveland it's got a little bit of this volcanic frosting over by the airport. In fact, I think the airport might be built on some of that. It's hard for vegetation to grow in a nice open area. Hey, let's plow it and bulldoze it and make an airport out of it. So that's right about here, Groveland and PMLS. And when you go down, you're going to come down to the end of this stuff. Here's Oakdale. So all this stuff right here, from about where the peak starts, gets younger and younger and younger and younger. Does that make sense? The last beer can's the youngest. Remember you put the first one in? That's this brown stuff. There's actually two terrains in here. So that's the first beer can. Here's like the second one. Maybe a third, darker green, lighter, darker. There's a bunch of them. This geologist drank a bunch. Okay, so there's terrain after terrain after terrain after terrain after terrain. We're talking about a couple 100 million years of this happening, growing North America westward. Now, today there's a different story. Here's Sierra Nevada today. No subduction. That shut off when the San Andreas Fault was born 25 to 30 million years ago. And it's grown to be 700 miles long. There's subduction on the southern part and under Mexico. There's Popocatépetl, Iztaccíhuatl, if I'm saying that right. Northern California with Lassen, Shasta, all the Mount Hood, Oregon, St. Helens. Right, so what's going on? This big long transform fault presumably occurred when the oceanic plate went under part of California and Nevada and Washington, or Nevada and half of Utah. And then it just stopped. And it's maybe peeling off, we think. We've imaged some of this with CT scan type of technology with seismometers and man-made earthquakes. So these big thumper trucks that can make low energy waves that go down, just like a CAT scan, basically, or an MRI. And so what we think is happening between Reno, which is on the east side of the Sierra, and all the way out here to Salt Lake, is the Basin and Range. And what's happening with the Basin and Range, if you take your hand and stretch your fingers apart, every finger would be a mountain range. Every space in between is a basin. And if you've driven the loneliest highway in America, Highway 50, right, ad nauseum, mountain range, a valley, and what's going on here? I can't wait to get to Grandma's house in Salt Lake. Geologists take their time because there's hot springs, there's all kinds of great geology out there. But what's happening is the crust between Reno and Salt Lake has doubled its width in the last 17 million years, and it's basically stretching. And the last mountain range is us, the Sierra Nevada. We're at the last range, and the crust is rising. We think that plate is delaminating, like your kitchen, right? Time to get a new counter. So that delamination allows higher heat flow, and it's like Jiffy Pop. Remember Jiffy Pop? You take a little cardboard off, and it's got that foil, right? Pop, pop, Jiffy Pop, and you put it on the campfire, and it goes pop, pop. One by one, the kernels pop, and then you get this bulging of that aluminum foil. One end is Reno, the other is Salt Lake, and the crust is actually stretching. So that's affecting us today, and we have this westward tilted surface with, say, Sonora Peak or Evans Pass, Sonora Pass, Tioga, thanks. And then Oakdale down here, right? So Central Valley's dropping, filling with the old volcanoes that aren't erupting anymore. and then basically piling up by Oakdale. All right. Wow, this is a great slide, isn't it? That's why I retired. Okay, so the bottom line, we had at least 5 big ones, mass extinctions. And I'm going to try to point out on the tour where some of these might have occurred. If you drive by here, you will be in rocks that no longer contain dinosaur fossils. We don't have dinosaurs in our area here, but the rocks were forming when dinosaurs were roaming around the interior of North America, for example. So I want you to tell me what you think all those 5 mass extinctions, by definition, where more than half of all animal and plant species and life on Earth disappeared, never to be seen again. What do you think they all have in common?
Spacewalks?
The last one we think was caused by a space rock, an asteroid. A meteorite's like this size or smaller. When you see a shooting star, that's a piece of sand grain sized rock shooting across the sky. So asteroids are rocky bodies. Comets are 95% ice. But who wants to get hit in the head with ice, right? So it's solid, it is called rock. So we narrowed it down to an asteroid, killed the dinosaurs, but on the other side of the planet where this thing hit, which was in the Yucatan Peninsula, there was a massive volcanic eruption going on, flooding that part of Russia, adding all this carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. All the others, very simply, it's more complex, but the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, CAMP for short, that's a major, major volcanic outpouring of lava and gas, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, water vapors are greenhouse gas. The Siberian traps, this was the largest extinction ever. 96% of species were lost. In the sea and on land, 4% left. And these Siberian traps were dumping magma out onto the land, covering the continent where Russia is today. This one also, the Lake Devonian, has a rapid injection of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere for different reasons that you can read, not right now. And then also this end-or division, 444,359,252,266, about every 88 million years. So we're good, we got 22 million, right? So that's the pattern here, okay? And I hope to try to point out some of these and where when you're driving, oh, that was one of those mass extinctions he talked about. Okay, we're gonna do a little activity here. Before we start, let me explain how this works. Left hand is basically today. Right hand is the beginning of Earth's birthday, this fingertip out here, this fingernail. So when you leave today, you'll now know you'll have a timeline in your body, okay? So knowing that this is today, or this is the beginning of Earth, this is today, what I want you to do right now is predict or guess where were dinosaurs on your body. How long did dinosaurs last? Were they on this end, on this end? Okay? Do that right now to yourself. Just slap your partner in the face, okay? Put your hand down. Dinosaurs.
It's like really recent.
From here to here. From here all the way to a few weeks ago. Last Tuesday. That's the last one you saw. Well, maybe flying around, right? So, okay, let's see. See if your prediction was accurate. A couple of the things we know that works in learning, repetition. So I'm doing things over and over. Another is prediction. If before you get the answer, you make a prediction, it shows that it actually helps you remember better than people that don't do the prediction. You got nothing to lose. Keep it to yourself. Okay. Sorry, let me go back. Oops, here's the answer. All right, so 4.6 billion years ago, a gigabyte, a gigaannum, a billion years ago, GA. Megabyte, okay? It's not a megabyte attachment, stop it. Okay, so we're not in the M's down here. These are billions of years ago, 4.5 2.5, 500 million, and this is where Phanerozoic starts. Phan means coarse-grained or coarse, zoic, zoology, study of life. So that means the first organisms that we can actually see that are large enough, that are multicellular, start like a little bit before this line right here. So we only have single-celled organisms all the way back till about here. Just the kind of bacteria that we keep spraying in our bathtub, right? That's all that was around. If you went back to from about here all the way through here, and you tried to listen and you could go back in time, you'd be on like rock. You know, you might, if you're near water, you might hear like water rushing down a creek with rock all around you. Maybe near the ocean, waves crashing. That would be the sound. And on land, maybe wind. Maybe a thunderstorm once in a while. For 90% of the Earth's history. Just kind of think about that. Okay, so we're going to zoom in on the hand. And so here's your left hand. This is today. And large creatures, the oldest fossils we have were right before your wrist. That's this part called Old Life, Paleozoic. Meso, Middle Life, goes from about this, the base of your finger to your last knuckle right there. And Cenozoic, Recent Life. This is after the last extinction of dinosaurs right here. And here's humans. So if we zoom in, the age of dinosaurs, they lived during middle life, disappeared during that asteroid impact. So from here to here, from here to there, take your other hand, put it right there. You're going to take this with you today. What? That's dinosaurs? I was wrong. This is me when I first did this. I was so wrong. Okay, it's okay to be wrong. So that's more accurate. This is the age of dinosaurs. We haven't even come to humans yet. So if you took, say, a nail file, right? I'm going to pretend, and you took and filed this fingernail once.
That's humans.
You just wiped out all of human history for 295,000 years. Come on.
290.
Sorry to depress you. Actually, we're pretty dang lucky. You think about it from a different perspective. We made it past those predators that ate our cousins and uncles and aunts, the microbes that killed off villages, and you know, we're pretty darn lucky. Okay, so another busy slide. Footstep analogy. We're going to walk backwards through time. Here's where I tie it to stitches. Okay? What's the oldest historical event you guys typically think about or work on? Anyone want to share? Gold Rush. How many years ago now? 175. We got some Native American stuff I saw on the website. And how long were Native Americans around? 8,000. Is it 8,000? 20,000? Okay. Where do they fit in with the fingernail, right? Okay, so geologists think differently in the sense that play this game. If you make one step 100 years, boom, I just went backwards in time 100 years. So I'm at 1925, after World War I, before World War II. This I took from Peter Brandon, Ends of the World, a good book if you want to read something about this. And he said, basically in one step, no internet, a third of the coral's reefs reappear, because a third had disappeared when he wrote this book. Atomic bombs finally reassembled. That'd be interesting to see. 2 world wars are fought in reverse. The electric glow on the night side of the planet is extinguished. No electricity at night, right? 100 years ago, 1925. So he wrote it in 2017. So the Ottoman Empire existed in 1917. Now we're going to do 20 steps. All right, okay, that's 100 here, 200, 300, 400, 500, blah, 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 blah. 20 steps. You've gone by Jesus. A few more paces. All the great religions of the world wake up, he says. First Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, the first legal systems, writing disappears, and then so does beer. Very tragic. We invented beer a long time ago. And then all recorded history is gone, including human civilization. And now you're at woolly mammoths. And so how many steps until dinosaurs? Make your prediction now. Don't tell anyone if you don't want to. Anyone got a guess? 650,000 steps. How long is it going to take an average person to do 650,000 steps? Here's the answer. 325 miles, 2,000 steps per mile for an average, I had to put in average person. So that's about 16 days to get to dinosaurs from right here. So if I start right here, and I go 325 miles, where am I going to end up? What's 300 miles away? Anyone? LA. LA? Extinction. If you want to go to the beginning of the planet's history, 20 miles a day for 4 years. And Big Bang, add 10 more, 14 years, every day, no days off. My kid had a PCT, took him 4.5 months. He went something like 1,200 something miles. You have to do 20 miles a day, every day, for 14 years to get to the Big Bang. A little less than 4 years just to get to the beginning of Earth. You guys have a lot of history to start working on, right? Come on, you guys. Does that put it into a little bit different perspective of what geologists have to think about? Yeah. Okay, so I put this QR code on here. If you want, what will happen is it'll try to load it, and depending on your service, it will or won't. It wouldn't on mine, on AT&T. But what I'm going to do is switch over now to Google Earth Pro and something called CalTopo, and give you a fly-through. Hopefully you have enough background geology on subduction, accretion, those terrains, those long belts, because we're going to drive through or fly through on Google Earth. All right. And I can leave this up at the end as well. So let me, everybody got it for now? Yeah, let me move on to continue. Oops, what did I do? Let's go to, should I just push? There it is. Okay. On your phone, this is a screenshot of my phone. You should get something that looks like this, a map with all these different colors on it. Each one is a different geologic rock type. And the yellow line is the tour, and the red dots are different places that I put on with different, interesting, to me, unique geology. Okay? So, the one thing to know is when you pull the app up, if you want these menus to pop up, this button right here, which I have down here, is the Map Objects tool, and this Layers icon is the Layers tool. So that, when you click on this one, a menu comes from the left side out, and then you can toggle stuff on, or click on one of these dots and go right to it with the pictures and the text. And if you want different layers other than geology, you want to see all the houses in California? There's 11 million of them. It might take a minute to load, but you can see everyone's house as accurately as they've mapped it. And then there's also Forest Service maps. There's all this cool stuff. So that's called CalTopo. Oops. And what I'm going to do is escape out of here and pull these apps up. So when you actually pull the CalTopo app up, it looks like this online. What do you think we should do here? Yeah.
I think I can fix it.
How's this sound? I think we're good, Phil. Let me just try this. I don't think I'm going to have to move too much, but you can turn that down too if you want. Okay, so I'm going to use the right mouse to navigate around here, and then take us from stop 01 Oakdale all the way up 120, past J59. Right here is where 49, which goes up here and wraps up here, and 108 that goes this way, split off, and then 120 goes this way through Chinese Camp, and then basically Moccasin, and then up through Groveland and on into the edge of Yosemite. and then all the way down, I put it all the way down to Yosemite Valley. There's so much stuff on Yosemite Valley, I don't have much at all in there, so hopefully that won't upset anyone. Okay, let me go over to GEP, Google Earth Pro. So with my little 6 degree of freedom space mouse, I'm going to try to fly through here real quick, and then back up a little bit. If you feel ill, stand up and go to the restroom. Let's see, let me turn off this layer right here, map layers, okay. Turning the geology off. So all you pilots, we're descending here for a rapid landing. Oakdale right here, and then the geology here I'll talk briefly about in a minute, but when you click on here, what'll happen is, let me just show you real quick, you get a picture of Groveland, Oakdale, Highway 120, Yosemite. And there's also information that comes with that on Google Earth, but if you use the CalTopo app, same thing, you can go over here and click on Oakdale, and then this dialog box comes up, and then it has a little information. Oakdale's built upon alluvial sediments, river sediments transported by the Stanislaus River from the Sierra Nevada mountains into Central Valley. And guess what? There's a little picture to click. And then if you click on here, you can expand it and see that same picture on Google Earth, but you can have this on your phone with you from now on. I'm just going to leave it up here. And then basically, it's a static image. So you close this window right here, like right now, and then you go to the next stop. Number 2, which is Lover's Leap. You guys know Lover's Leap?
Yes.
Right past Knight's Ferry if you're going to Oakdale. And so what does it look like? Ginger took this picture right here while we were driving. And so here we were on 120 heading towards Oakdale. You see the cars right here? Yeah, kind of zoom in a little bit. They're going up. What was the horse's name that was there? Cricket? Anybody remember Cricket the horse? Yeah. So that's there's a little cross there. This horse used to hang out in the old days when everyone didn't zip by so fast, and that was, they'd stop and feed her a carrot or whatever. This is Lover's Leap. There's a little American flag up here. I think there's 2 flags on there. And right below is the Stanislaus River, about 180 feet below that point, real high point. So that's on here, and if you click on each image, this text pops up giving you more information about the geology there. Oh, it's 30 to 40 million years old. What is that all about? Then you read the text, and then also, same thing with, oh, these are layered volcanic sediments. Wow, I need to click on that. When here's Lover's Leap, Knight's Ferry. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, and then you can see cars right here. These are cars on 120 going towards Lover's Leap. Can you see that? If you can't, let me zoom in. These are actual vehicles, right? And over here is the Stanislaus River where Knight's Ferry is. And if you zoom across here, Jeff, what are those layers I see every time I go to my friends in Oakdale? These are volcanic debris from those volcanoes that erupted and no longer are alive. They've been eroding, filling up this part of the Central Valley and building hills. And so layer by layer, they're filled with cobbles and sand and gravel and silt and mud made out of volcanic debris from those volcanoes. We've analyzed them, and they're 30 to 40 million years old. The volcanoes were older than erupting. Most of the granite in the Sierra is about 80 to 120 million years old. So about 100 million years ago, these volcanoes were popping off, and then there was a period of quiescence, and more erosion took over. So that's one of the, that's stop number 2, right? And so I'm not going to do every single stop based on time, but I will basically zoom out a little bit, sorry about that, to show the, again, this belt-like pattern. When you drive eastward, you're now not going through oldest to youngest. You're starting in the younger rocks, going into older and older. There are a couple features I do want to point out. One of them is Table Mountain. Let's talk about that. I think tomorrow's speaker, if you're going to the little mouse, what's going on? You need to get a new mouse. Oh, you know what's wrong? I've got it set up for Google Earth, not for Caltopo. It doesn't work for flying in 3D in the other app for some reason. I haven't figured that out. So tomorrow night there's a speaker at the, what's the club? The Aviation Club. Okay, so, and that's Manny Gabet, G-A-B-E-T, I think I'm saying his, I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Professor at San Jose State University in geology and geomorphology, which is the study of the surface forms of the Earth, like Table Mountain. Right, let's take a look at Table Mountain. If we zoom in and fly over here, on the left is where Knight's Ferry is. Those rocks and Lover's Leap are right here. I can kind of, the point of the mouse is to be able to fly easier than the herky-jerky right-hand mouse, right? This is the left hand. And so basically, these are those layers I just showed you. That photo was taken from Willems Road, which is this road right here. And, sorry, it's right, that one. I think it might be that one right there. This is the aqueduct from the Stanislaus River that goes through these mountains, and it feeds all of these almond orchards over here. So they dug a tunnel from here. If you want me to prove it to you, right over to, comes out, let's see, right about here. Wait, no, that's not it. Oh, I lied. There it is. That's not it. Sorry, getting sidetracked. Let's go back to Table Mountain. So basically, Table Mountain is a lava flow that came from the east side of the Sierra Nevada crest. The Sierra Nevada mountains have been uplifting, and basically they were lower at one point in time relative to where they are today. And there was a super volcano over there. We have another active super volcano in California today, and it's over by where Mammoth ski area is. It's called the Long Valley Caldera. The town or city of Mammoth is inside of a 10 by 12 mile long super volcano. A caldera, which is by definition is crater, volcanic crater larger than a mile across. And so some of the lava from the caldera on the east side, called the Little Walker Caldera after the Little Walker River, flowed all the way down the Paleo-Stanislaus River. And so basically that's what this mountain-like structure is. Let me click on it and pull up a couple pictures that I have here. Oops, let me try the, click right here, get back over to Table Mountain. Okay, right, Table Mountain's on here twice actually, right here. Okay, this picture, a friend of mine who's a teacher, a professor at Modesto Junior College, Gary Hayes took. Can you see the meandering pattern in the table, the tabletop? That's it. That's strong evidence that the lava hardened in a gravel bed river that was meandering as it flowed down this pathway 70 or 80 miles from Sonora Pass. That just seems like stunning, right? So the idea is that the rock that the lava flowed into and hardened, it was more easily erodible than lava when it crystallizes, and so it's eroded away. And tomorrow night's speaker is going to tell you why that's not an example of inverted topography like I taught for 26 years. What he thinks happened is that inverted topography happens when basement rock or bedrock that's really hard, harder than gravel and volcanic ash, basically erodes faster than the lava. And so he's suggesting that, no, my students and I have gone out here. This is loosely consolidated volcanic debris from volcanoes. That stuff was way easier to erode. And when the volcanoes shut down 4 million years ago, then the water was much cleaner. Didn't have all the debris. And so when you start, flushing clean water down a river system, erosion really starts picking up. So he thinks that there's more to it going on than the bedrock being eroded faster, because the bedrock around here is really crystalline and hard to erode. I think he's got a point. It'll be interesting to see what he says tomorrow. So, okay, let me back out of there and talk briefly about this weird area here called the Red Hills. All right, and so that is, this is called the Bear Mountains Fault. And the Red Hills terrain, basically. So here's the Red Hills, have reddish soil, even though the rock is green serpentinite right here. Most people say, oh, it's serpentine. Well, serpentine's a group of about 6 different minerals that make up this rock that we call serpentinite, named after serpents because it's kind of the same color as many blackish green snakes. And so this rock doesn't have oak trees. Can you see that these are gray pines on this side of the line and oaks out on this side? These are all oak trees. They don't have all their leaves on them, but there's a distinct dividing line at the edge of the Red Hills. And when you drive down Red Hills Road, you can totally see when you're getting into the serpentine. It has more magnesium, and magnesium tends to outcompete calcium for tissue and such, and so plants and animals don't necessarily like it. Oak trees hate it, they don't grow on this stuff. So you can really see it based on the distribution of the vegetation. And so that's distinctive, and you can see that when you're driving on 120 between Chinese Camp and Moccasin. There's serpentine all on your right. There's no oak trees on parts of it. You're like, oh, okay. Just Ginger and I were driving that on the way over here and totally saw that. Okay, so let me take just a couple more stops here. And what I'm going to do is one more thing that you guys can do on the app. If you change your map layer to shaded relief, it gets rid of everything but the bald Earth model and just the rock. It doesn't even show the rock. This other layer, the geology, shows the rock. And so you can kind of see like, oh my gosh, there's no trees on here. Let me just zoom back in. So when we come up to Big Oak Flat and we hit the granodiorite, that's a rock that's very similar to granite. We basically, you pass these quartz veins on the left when you're coming from Big Oak Flat to into Groveland. There's 2 sets of them. And that's what the miners were after, was trying to find the quartz with the gold. And the details are in the description here, but in a nutshell, gold and quartz form together by hot hydrothermal, we call them hot fluids of water inside the earth, kind of salty water with dissolved quartz and dissolved gold together, and then they would make it up to cracks. So if granite comes up like a big lava, like a bubble in say a lava lamp, it's pushing the rock and fracturing the stuff it's coming into, and the fluids could go into those cracks and fractures. And the miners would try to find those quartz veins, mine them, sometimes blast them out, crush them in stamp mills, and then basically separate the quartz from the gold just by density. Or sometimes they'd use mercury if it was powdered, pressed down to almost like a powder size. Because mercury is a liquid at room temperature, it sticks to the gold and amalgamates, and then they squeeze it through a chamois, piece of chamois cloth, recapture as much mercury as they could, and then use it again. And then they'd have to the gold that I've seen around here with mercury on it looks like silver nuggets that you heat it and you can evaporate the mercury off. Not a very healthy thing to do. It'll give you Dane damage, right? I'm aware of the time, so what I'm going to do is end the tour. And we didn't get all the way into Yosemite, but this tour is built for you to do exactly that. So if you click on this little, this rectangle up here, it takes you back to this point, and then you can choose any one of those stops you want, and then basically do a deeper dive in. And so what I want to do now is just summarize. Let me go back to here, and the end of the story, what did we learn, I hope, is that the story for our area of the Sierra Nevada is one of subduction and accretion. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay. So basically, I hope you know a little more, or at least what words to go look up now. And then convergent tectonics, where plates colliding. That's what produced these weird exotic terrains, these islands from these island arc systems. They also produce the granitic rocks. Remember I was saying subduction, the rocks partially melt, come back to the surface, make volcanic arcs like the Cascades. And we have a 4.6 billion year old planet. Dinosaurs, where on your hand are they? These last two little knuckles, right? Where are humans? Yeah, not for long, right? So, right? The rule is extinction. 99.99% of every species that ever existed on Earth is extinct. Those are bad odds. Don't go to the casino right now. Okay, just a scrape of the fingernail. And extinctions are due to climate change and you know, probably all 5 of the biggest ones. Something very drastic happened to the water and the air. Just saying. And then now I hope you can use Caltopo and do a geo tour using that QR code. I'll put that up at the end. You should probably drive, not walk. Thank you very much.